Hey friends, so today is day 2 of our Bridgerton series, and today we are going to be talking about expectations versus the reality in marriage. My name is Bridget Reed. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist associate, and today I've been breaking down this series as we lead into the Bridgerton series season 3 launched this Friday. I've been talking about parallels and lessons that we can learn in real life that come out of the themes in these Bridgerton series. Like I stated in my first video, by the way, if you haven't gone to watch that, go ahead and watch the day 1 of this Bridgerton series. I talked about communication and secrecy and how that pops up in our real life marriages and relationships and some lessons that we can learn from it. Today we're going to be talking about expectations versus reality in marriage, and I'm going to be talking about 7 different things that we can discuss in this idea of expectations versus reality in marriage. Are you ready? Here we go. Okay, let's get started with number 1. The first thing I want to mention is this idea of romanticized expectations. We don't just see this in Bridgerton. It's seen in most romantic stories that comes out of Hollywood. And what we find is that sometimes our culture will start to believe that this idealized of romance and relationships is something that is normal. And actually, a lot of those situations are just not everyday life, okay? And setting the high expectations in marriage and relationships is one of the issues that comes up in premarital counseling as well as marriage counseling, because it portrays a continuous romance and perfection that may not align with everyday life. Like, most people have jobs and kids, and most people are tired or get sick, or they might have a death in the family, or they might go through some things that they weren't expecting to go through. And all of these strains and stressors affects the relationship, the romance, the intimacy, the connection. So this idea that everything is always going to be this idealized version of romance and marriage is really causing a lot of problems in people's expectations in marriage. So something to work out in premarital counseling for sure. If you're currently married going through this is definitely something to talk about. What kind of unspoken expectations do I have about marriage and relationships because of the movies, or because I just never seen a healthy example of marriage? Definitely something to think about. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to bring up and talk about in our Bridgerton series as we talk about expectations versus the reality in marriage is this idea of financial expectations in reality. So we saw this so much so in the Featherington family. So the Lady Featherington is the wife, and her husband, Lord Featherington, passed away. So she was left with all this debt that she didn't even know about. And then she was also trying to find a eligible suitor for her daughters, which it doesn't seem like they were doing too good finding somebody for them. And so everybody that Lady Featherington sought out, they had to have a financial backing, because not only would they give her a dowry, right, to pay her for her daughters and to make sure she was okay, but they would take care of the whole family. In order to do that, they had to be well off themselves. So there are some financial expectations. And so you have to think about like the financial aspects of marriage and contrasting that to the often unspoken expectations, like maintaining a certain lifestyle. Like, do you guys even have that conversation? Did you ever have that conversation? Not just talking about a certain lifestyle in a general sense, like house and car, but a certain lifestyle in the sense of like, how often are we going to travel? Like, how often are we going to give to charity? Are we going to attend certain events that are quite expensive? How many children we're going to have. Like, all of these play into the financial expectations versus the reality in marriage and the real financial challenges couples face, such as budgeting, debt, and offering differing spending habits. So again, things that come up in Bridgerton that you need to think and take into account when either in premarital counseling or sitting down in marriage counseling trying to decide on where you guys are or how you got on 2 different pages. Does that make sense? Let's keep going. Next one is division of labor and intimacy over time. So those are 2 separate ones. When you talk about the division of labor, this is all about expectations in terms of like household chores and responsibilities. Sometimes, definitely with this generation, I'm noticing that they're doing some things differently. I'm talking about the millennial generation particularly, and even moving into Gen Z. They're doing some things differently, and traditional roles may or may not be at play. With that, you really do have to discuss what does that look like. If it's traditional roles do not play, like the wife stays home and watch the kids while taking care of the home, and the man goes to work. If that is not your definition of your marriage, then you need to find out, like, if y'all are both working full time, then it is an unfair expectation for the wife to also be the only one to take care of the house, watch the kids, and she works full time while you only work full time, husband. So that would not be a fair thing. So you need to really decide, and y'all need to have a coming to Jesus conversation about what is a fair division of labor if we're not following the traditional labor rules of, me staying at home. Because what ends up happening is one person ends up carrying a way more, a lot more weight in the relationship when it comes to work around the house and working financially. And the other person doesn't realize that they have put that weight on them unexpectedly and may have thought, like, I never really thought about it until it happened. That's fine too. Just make sure you make the adjustment so that you guys both can have a good capacity in carrying the load as a partnership. It's all about a partnership. When you think about intimacy over time, which is the second one I just mentioned, this is talking about the expectations of sustained passionate intimacy versus the natural ebb and flow of physical and emotional intimacy in a long-term relationship. We saw this theme come up a lot with, I think it was Lady Agatha. If you saw Queen Charlotte, which is like kind of like the spinoff of Bridgerton, which, let me put a pin in it. Queen Charlotte, my goodness, what is her name? India Rhea, and I'm not got to pronounce her last name because I'm going to slaughter it. But she did that role. She played Queen Charlotte so good. One of my favorite out of this whole Bridgerton series, which I think that's a spinoff, was the Queen Charlotte series, because she portrayed like this idea that that these themes that come up, like not only the society pressures was on the king, but he couldn't portray he had some mental issues that he was dealing with. He had mental illness and he could not be that person. Like he had to hide it. And then they tried to torture the poor boy to make it seem like he didn't have these things. And Queen Charlotte came into the picture. She didn't know what she was walking into. She was just like, what is happening? Which again is another common theme. You oftentimes see the best of people until you finally get with them. And then you start to see, oh, everybody has flaws. Everybody has things to work on. And deciding on what are your deal breakers or not is something you should do before you get engaged. And what I love about the Queen Charlotte series is that she learned to not only acknowledge his weaknesses and his flaws and the things that he was going through, but she learned to accept him and appreciate him for who he was. That movie moved me because it's this idea that we're all going through our different things, and not that you should be married to somebody perfect, but can you really accept them with their flaws and all? So kudos to the Queen Charlotte cast, like the whole crew, actors, actresses. You guys, that movie just was amazing. And I loved it. I just had to take a minute to give y'all flowers we do. Okay, back to Lady Agatha and this idea of intimacy over time. So like I was saying, in Queen Charlotte, she started to share her story with Lady Agatha, and she was married to a man that she was not attracted to. It was an arranged marriage, and we are going to talk about arranged marriages later in the couple of days from now. But she was not attracted to her husband, her lord, that they married her off to. And so she had to do duties that she was not necessarily wanting to do. You do not want to be that way in a relationship. I know there are times when women feel, and depending on what generation you come from, they might tell you one thing or the other. And that is not the way to go. You need emotional intimacy. And I created a video on 5 tips on building emotional intimacy using the Gottman scientific method. You don't just have to be a body. You can actually be connected to each other. And it's no fun if the husband ain't having a great time and the wife ain't having a good time. That's not what you want. So this idea that you have to have this forced passionate intimacy or sex is just not true. There could be ways that you can keep your connection strong over time. And what it looks like for each couple is different, right? You just have to find out what works for you guys. And that's something that, again, you can work out in counseling as well. The next one that I want to discuss is societal and family pressures in relationships. We see this so much in Bridgerton on all different sides. Actually, if I had to bring up one key theme that is very consistent throughout the story in Bridgerton, is this one. There are so many family pressures, not only to marry a suitable person, as Lady Whistledown, suitable Lord, as Lady Whistledown puts it in her letters to the town, but also somebody that your family can approve of, your friends and family and everybody around you can approve of, and you don't feel like it is so much so an embarrassment on you. So we really need to explore societal norms and families' expectations, and find out how that can shape our expectations and understanding of where a marriage should look like, and how these pressures can lead to dissatisfaction when reality just does not meet these constructed ideas. Sometimes you can find your perfect person, it just doesn't meet the ideal idea of what you thought you'd be married, but that is your person. I know for me, I never had an idea of what in my head I was going to be looking for in a husband. When my husband showed up, I had to do a double take, and it matched. Like, it matched everything I was attracted to. It matched. He actually had some extra things. So sometimes society can shape like, this is the perfect husband for you, and that's a perfect husband for somebody, but that might not be a perfect husband for you. And your family and society cannot play that role. You have to determine that for yourself. And I always say, consult the Lord. And I'm not talking about the Lord in one of these movies. I'm talking about the one, King of Kings and Lord of Lords, Jesus Christ. Because you need somebody bigger than you and him or anybody else that can put their stamp of approval on that person. So make sure that you have wise counsel around you, and you seek the Lord to get peace. Seek peace in your heart, and you have a real understanding of what you're bringing into that relationship, and God knows that person more than you do. So make sure you get that stamp of approval. That is wisdom. Okay, so the last one that we are going to discuss today, the last two, is conflict resolution and personal growth and change. So when we think about conflict resolution, this is this idea that couples might expect to solve conflicts smoothly or expect to never have conflicts at all, versus the reality that disagreements are normal and managing them as healthily is the key to a strong marriage. You know, I just don't understand when people say things like, we never argue or we never have a disagreement. Like, I'm like, as a therapist, that is a red flag. That's a red flag that somebody is suppressing something, that somebody is not being truthful and honest with themselves, or maybe they have grown up so much to suppress their own feelings and emotions that speaking up and having their own voice, or having their disagreement or voice towards, or a preference towards something that's different than others, is a learned trait and behavior, and we got to find out where that came from. Okay, but having disagreements is normal, y'all. Having conflicts in relationship can be incredibly healthy, incredibly powerful for your marriage. Also, you want to just show yourself and prove to each other that it's okay to stand in your own truth, and love each other and appreciate each other and walk together. That is a hallmark of a healthy relationship. So conflict resolution is something to be expected, but knowing and having the tools to do it right is key. Now, dysregulated environments, arguing, screaming, yelling all the time, to a point where toxic communication is happening. You're hurling insults at each other. You can't hear each other. You're talking over each other. Those are signs that conflict resolution is not going well. Okay, so that's where we need to slow down, sit down, take a breather, take a break, come back later when our cortisol levels are reduced and our emotional brain is turned off, and we're able to actually hear each other and have emotional intimacy. Okay, the last one is personal growth and change. So this talks about how a couple or person, two people in a relationship, evolve over time, right? It can lead to shifts in marital dynamics unexpectedly, right? Couples may enter a marriage expecting to grow in the same direction, but find that their paths diverge in ways they didn't anticipate. This is incredibly normal, and it's okay. You can make it through these moments as well. All you have to do is figure out, like, again, identify like who you are, like who am I, like get to know yourself before you try to share that with somebody else or try to share that with your spouse. How am I evolving? Who am I now that I wasn't 10 years ago? And then introducing that person to your spouse, and the spouse should be in the mindset of, okay, I'm here through thick or thin, right? Sickness and health to death do us part. So who are you now? And let me get to know this version of you and evolve and appreciate and learn to acknowledge who you are. And that is true love, acknowledging and appreciating who a person is, flaws and all. That's why making a decision to get married should not be an easy one. Okay, this little Bridgerton series is showing you guys like they flip. Like, listen, making a decision to be married should not be an easy one. It should not be based on finances only. It should not be based on what this town or society has said only, actually at all. It should be based on two people making a conscious decision that they are good for each other, that they want to be with each other, and they want to work through all of life stresses and life joys together with each other till death do you part. That's the way you start. That's what we need to continue. Now, having the tools and resources to do that is something we work out in marriage. By the way, we're doing 15-minute consultations right now at relationalityco.com. If you're interested in signing up, just go to relationalityco.com and we will get started with you to help you through your problems in your relationship. If you find that you're stuck or disconnected, or if you are engaged, we would love to walk you through a premarital assessment. In addition to married couples, we also do a marriage psychoanalysis on both of you guys to make sure everybody's okay. And we also offer individual and family therapy as well. So if that's something that you need or interested in, reach out to us at relationalityco.com. We'll get started with that. All right, y'all. So stay tuned for day 3 of our Bridgerton series, where we are continuing to share with you and draw parallels from the Bridgerton series on different themes that we can pick up from the series and apply them to real life scenarios or just learning lessons that we can grasp from them. This is a conversation that's been provoked because I truly do believe a lot of you are seeing yourself in some of these characters, at least partially. So tomorrow we're going to be talking about roles and family pressures in relationships. We dived in that a little bit today, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper into how family expectations can influence personal relationships. It's going to be a good one. So stay tuned. Every day I'll be doing a part on this Bridgerton series as we lead up to Bridgerton season 3 releasing on Friday. All right, have a good one, y'all.